Good old hatred, a feeling that every one of us possesses towards someone. And if you are a Formula 1 driver, you're about to get hated on, no matter the reason. Oh, you good and you dominated? Well, we will hate on you. Thing that happened with Vettel, with Red Bull, also with Hamilton, and with Max Verstappen. Sure, they did do other stuff that contributed a little bit, and sure, they're not as hated as the other guys I'll mention right now. But you got my point. I'll start with Ayrton Senna. You might be surprised because right now all you see about Senna is fans. And that's understandable. I mean, the guy is one of the greatest ever. He pushed the car to its limits. The way he drove that car was incredible and very fun to watch. Those were the same reasons that made him hated, but not by the fans, but by the drivers. See, he was so incredible as a driver, but he was so cocky as well. He always saw himself as if God sent him to dominate Formula 1. That competitiveness inside of him let him be furious at every mistake. He also had the rivalry with Prost that I won't get into because it's so long. And just for information, Prost wasn't any better. His teammates hated his guts. And because he managed somehow to isolate himself from both Ferrari and McLaren, he was with no drive for the 1992 season. And this was compounded years later when he ran Ligier into the ground and refused to sell a dying team because he wanted his name on it. Anyways, back to Senna. Senna's egoistic behavior turned into frustration when he didn't get what he wanted. Take for example when Alessi overtook him. What did Ayrton Senna do? He slapped him. Another example was Mika Hakkinen. Mika managed to out-qualify Senna in Estoril. Senna's response to that was pushing him against the wall. So yeah, although Senna is a fan favorite those days, back in the day drivers hated him, but definitely not more hated than Nelson Piquet. If he wasn't a Brazilian, you probably hated Nelson Piquet. And actually, after some comments about Ayrton Senna, probably even if you are Brazilian, you'll hate his guts. See, anything that popped into Piquet's mind, he said it. Any little way he could get into his opponent's mind, he'll take the opportunity. Well, he notoriously called Mansell an uneducated blockhead with a stupid and ugly wife. He was like that to every driver, especially to Senna. He called him the Sao Paulo taxi driver, and he also called him gay. And he implanted that hate to his son, Nelson Piquet Jr., who somehow thinks he's better than Senna. Nelson Piquet also flipped Senna when he overtook him outside in Budapest. And when he was asked who was better, him or Senna, he responded by saying, "I'm alive," which is disgusting. Some people may think that this is because Piquet didn't give a shit. Well, actually, this shows the opposite, that he cared about everything. I can go on for days about things that Piquet did, but I'll just mention the last thing when he called Lewis Hamilton the N-word and ended up being taken to court and paying $1 million. The year of 80s and 90s was filled with wild drivers. I mean, I mentioned Senna, Piquet, and Prost. And I mentioned some wild stuff, but trust me, I didn't even touch the surface. I didn't even mention Mansell, who is a pathological liar, extremely self-centered, or Lauda, or even Michael Schumacher. Actually, I have to make a video about this era of drivers. It was so wild, and with today's FIA regulations, we'll never get anyone like them. But that doesn't mean that today there is no hated drivers. Quite the opposite. Starting off with Nikita Mazepin, or as people like to call him, Nikita Mazepin. Let's get one thing out of the way. If you are a paid driver, you're about to be hated on. But when you are a paid driver and you finish 21st out of 20 drivers and had 22 spins in 21 races while managing to get half the grid to cuss him out.
This guy's a fucking idiot, like.
Oh, these bloody idiots.
Mazepin will never change.
But that isn't quite as much as Lance Stroll, who got the whole grid to hate on him. Lance Stroll is essentially Nikita Mazepin, but with a richer dad, and I'll admit it, a little bit better at driving. After all, he's got 3 podiums. What do you get when you get a driver that his first job came because his dad sponsored a team paying $80 million, and his second team stunt came after his dad bought a whole F1 team? A spoiled guy who's entitled to everything. Take for example this crash with Ricciardo. Even a blind man could tell you that Lance Stroll was in the wrong, but he somehow managed to spin the blame on Ricciardo.
Idiots just slammed on the brake, check wing damage.
And Ricciardo, the nice guy with big nose, who's all quirky and fun, was so agitated about it. I don't want to sound like a broken CD, so I'll just tell you that Nicholas Latifi was hated because of the same reasons he was an ass driver who got into Formula 1 because of his dad money. But luckily for us Formula 1 fans, 2 out of the last 3 are already out of Formula 1. So yeah, this pretty much sums up the hated Formula 1 drivers. Or actually it doesn't. I mean, every Formula 1 driver is hated. I can go on and say Lando Norris is hated because of his comment that he made on Max Verstappen. I'll have to mention every single Formula 1 driver and the video will go on for days. So let me know down in the comments who is the driver you hate the most and what's the reason for that. And don't forget to like and subscribe.